Here are 3 ways to know if you're training hard enough to get stronger in the gym. Look, strength training isn't about maxing out every week, but you do need to know how to train hard. So I'm going to give you 3 very easy ways to know if you're training hard enough in the gym. So many of the women I speak to are worried that they're not making progress because they're not lifting heavy enough. And this is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, is to only be focusing on the weight on the bar or the dumbbells. And the reason for that is strength training isn't actually about how much you can lift. And I know that sounds silly. Strength training is about making progress. And one of the best things you can do is not hone in on the numbers. Yeah, I got into weight training because I loved seeing the weights go up. You know, it's a bloody good feeling, and we all know that feeling. It's probably why you're here today and why you're lifting, right? But the problem with that is you can only lift so much. And the longer you've been training for, the harder it is to add load to the bar. And if strength training was only about that, then we'd all have lifted all the weights in the gym and we'd all be super strong and, you know, that'd be it. We would have completed strength training. And I tried all kinds of ways to measure progress with clients. I tried percentages. Percentages are really difficult because it will tell you exactly how much weight to lift, which sounds great, right? Oh, easy, I don't have to think about it. But we all know that a weight can feel fucking amazing one week, and then the next week, let's say you've had a shit day at work, everything's gone to tits up, that same weight that you lifted easily the week before, confidently, the week before, now feels 10 times heavier. So then what? You feel shit, you feel like you're going backwards. It's not a nice feeling. And so the best way you can look at strength training is not about how heavy you can go, but about how much effort you can put in, because that's all the body cares about. Your body doesn't know numbers, doesn't know how much weight you're lifting on the bar. It only knows stress. And all we're trying to do is add enough stress to the body to force it to adapt and therefore get stronger. So, Sam, how do I measure it then? One of the best ways you can look at your training is on the RPE scale. You've probably heard it before, but I'm going to bang on about it anyway. The rate of perceived exertion. Yeah. It's a very fancy way of saying how much effort you put in. And the RPE scale goes up to 10. 10 being max effort. So that's like, I've got nothing left in the tank. I like to see this as technical breakdown as well. So this is solid reps without technical breakdown, could not do any more without doing weird shit, right? And so a good way to look at it is, typically if we want to keep making progress, we want to be 1 to 3 reps in reserve, or 7 to 10 on the RPE scale. Now, I actually like to program by saying 1 to 2 reps left in the tank, or for some movements, I might even tell you to go to failure, because typically, let's say we're using a tricep extension as an example, going to failure with a tricep extension isn't going to leave you fucked, and it's not going to be too difficult to recover from. It's unlikely you're going to hurt yourself by going to failure with a tricep extension. If you do, I don't know what to tell you. But on the other end, if you try going to failure on something like a deadlift, it's going to massively eke into your recovery. So basically, you're going to feel fucked for a lot longer, and that will impact training going forward. In fact, it will impact your day, right? Most of the people I'm speaking to have a job. So let's say you train first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. and you've got max effort deadlifts. Are you going to function for the rest of the day? I know I wouldn't. So just because you can doesn't mean you need to, and that's what training smart and hard means. It's training as hard as you need to, not as hard as you can. So basically, train hard enough to see progress, but not so much that it leaves you feeling fucked. And that's what training hard and smart means. It's one of the best things you can do, if I'm honest. If you want to train and be consistent, if you want to train for longevity, so if you want to be able to keep this up, and especially for those who lift and do something else. So if you run, with me it's jiu-jitsu, but maybe you climb or you cycle, you might have an activity or a sport that you do outside of strength training that you want energy for, and you don't want your strength training to take over that, you want your strength training to support it. And so again, this is why it's so important to learn how to train hard to actually see progress, but not so hard that it's, fucking you up. And so the final thing I'm going to say on the RPE scale, which is super important, is it allows you to adapt your training based on that day. Again, training isn't your life, right? You have a life outside of the gym. You might be on your period, it might feel like you're getting punched in the stomach and you want to kill someone. You don't want to be focusing on like a number on the bar that maybe you can lift when you're feeling fantastic, but not on the day where you feel like death. Instead, you can look at the effort that you're putting in. So if it says 2 reps left in the tank, and if you train to the point where you've got 2 left in the tank based on how you're feeling that day, it still counts. Now, I am going to do a whole other video on how to adapt your training based on life, because it's very important, and there's a fancy term for that, auto-regulation. It basically just means adapting training based on how you're feeling that day, so you can keep going, because otherwise it's all or nothing, right? That's for another time. I'm going to finish this video by giving you 3 easy ways to know if you're training hard enough during your session. Number 1 is if your reps are actually slowing down towards the end. If I'm watching a client and every single rep is just up and down, up and down, up and down, and even towards the end that doesn't change, I know that they've got plenty more in them. So let's use a squat as an example. If your last couple of reps, you feel like you're having to grind it out a little bit to get back up, you know you've trained hard enough. But if you just popped up towards the end, maybe you've got more in you. Just saying. So in short, if your last few reps look the same as your first, then yeah, you've probably got a lot left in you. Number 2 is you actually need your rest periods. I say this all the time. I get some people look at 2 to 3 minutes rest and think, fucking hell, don't need that. But the reality is, if you don't need that, you didn't train hard enough. It really is that simple. And 3, if you're fucking looking around whilst you're lifting and, checking out what other people are doing, you're not training hard enough. So remember, heavy is relative to you. Think about the effort that you're putting in rather than just focusing on the number on the bar. And look, I am absolutely all for performance-based goals. If you have a target in mind that you want to be able to lift with your deadlift or your bench, I fucking love that for you, especially for women. But it shouldn't be the only thing you focus on, because I'm telling you now, only focusing on the numbers is one way to ruin your strength training journey. So remember, you don't need to be maxing out and fucking yourself up every session in order to make progress, but equally, you now know what you need to look out for if you're unsure whether you're training hard enough. And if you do want smart, sustainable strength training that means you can actually make progress, maybe have a little bit of fun, and there's a community with a coach who actually gives a shit, you know where I am.